Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Jaymie Icke Podcast, where every week from now on I'll be chatting to somebody who has something to say on the subjects of mindset, health, wellness, discipline, visionaries and things along those lines. Obviously in the main programme I generally focus on news and hard-hitting headlines and things that are happening quite in the moment. Whereas what I wanted to do with this podcast is rather than do a mash-up show where there's a lot of everything, I wanted to have it separate where we discuss subjects that maybe have a little bit longevity, subjects that maybe you can apply to your life going forward, things that we can all do to improve. And also this is a subject that I'm personally very interested in and I love chatting to people about it and I'd like to learn as we go forward. In this first episode tonight, I'm going to be talking to Melissa Buffington, who is a holistic health and business coach. She talks a lot about all those things I just mentioned: mindset, manifestation, self-transformation, and so on. And I'm looking forward to chatting to her. So let's get straight into it. Right, well, thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see you again. So at the top, I've introduced you as a holistic business coach, which is what it says on your site. So what exactly do you mean by that? What do you help people do?
Yeah, holistic life and business coaching. So I used to have a license as a psychotherapist and ran a practice. And what I found as I did the work was that one, it connected to a spiritual journey. And two, whether people were coming in for emotional or relationship issues or to grow professionally or in their businesses, it was all interrelated. And one change in one area of life would blow up a totally different one that might seem unrelated. So I just found that this holistic approach and being able to take a big picture view and I can see how things are connected is really what allows people to transform.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of people look at their lives in isolation. They don't look at how everything connects. You know, if you're feeling, for example, a big area of interest for me is diet and health. If you have a crap diet and you feel tired all the time, you're not going to be motivated to get up at 5 a.m. to either exercise or to be, at work early to get a jump on the day and those sort of things. So it is all interconnected. So through your career then, what are the main points that you've learned that you think make the best traits in being a successful person in whatever it is you choose to be successful in?
The first I would say is, I don't know if it's so much a trait, but I guess it could be. It's having your priorities and your values aligned correctly. And yes, that's different for individuals, but there is an overarching template of how we function as humans. So that everything we do and create in life is sustainable. So that foundation has to be yourself, your relationship with God, source, the universe, something bigger than yourself. That includes your own healing, your own self-care, your nutrition, your diet, your exercise, all of that. The next piece is your partnership or your marriage and having that foundation solid, being united together and coming together as a third entity that's born out of your relationship. This is what I call the true conscious marriage. Whether you're single or in a partnership, you can do that work. So that's a deeper topic. And then from that space, family can fall in order, right? Your children and the way that they're parented by the two of you together, the way that your family flows together is now in alignment. And then from that space, your career, your professional life, your money, all of that can grow in a way that is very sustainable because the whole system is connected properly and the foundations are solid. So I would say that would be the first most important piece. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off then.
Oh, it's fine. I was going to go into other traits, but there's a ton right there. So we can just dive deeper if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating because I think all the different aspects you mentioned there, whether it's, health, nutrition, exercise, family, relationships, children. I think if you ask most people you spoke to in the street, have you got all those where you want them? Most people would say no. Right. And I think people always seem to be finding, I find it quite frustrating. I think people find excuses for why they haven't got things in order when generally things start with you. You're the one in control. I think blaming other people for the fact your life isn't as you want it it's giving your power away to an extent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I find I actually did a podcast interview with a couples therapist years ago, and she didn't air the interview, even though she knew the topic in advance was relationship therapy for one. Because I found so much transformation would happen in a marriage or with a child's behavior, or in, even a business, just by working with one individual. If it be the CEO or even operations manager, it doesn't matter. One person has so much influence on the whole, and you don't even really know what the other person's part is. Sure, other people do affect us, of course, but you can't clearly see what their part is until you've cleaned up your end of the street. And a lot of times there's stuff there that people can't even see, the way that they're thinking or believing, the way that their foundations at home are out of alignment, that those things are affecting what's showing up in front of them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, rather than look in the mirror, like I remember watching a Jordan Peterson interview and he was talking about get your own house in order before you go and try and reorganize the world. And he was talking about these big activist groups that take on these massive stance, like Just Stop Oil and the trans activists and so on, but that don't necessarily look at themselves first and get their own lives in order. So, do you think that's because people are scared to look in the mirror and say, actually, maybe I can take control? It's much easier to project that onto other people.
Well, I think that's part of it. But I think part of it too is that this entire system we're raised in is designed to get us looking outside of ourselves. All of it is about focusing on external circumstances, material conditions, even sourcing our security in our bank account or our marital status or our, anything that's in and of this world, even our race, our culture, all that, right? It's always pointing outside of ourselves rather than to the true essence of who we are, our own emotions, our own thoughts, our own souls, all of those things. So I think a big part is programming, and part of it's definitely fear. Right? Because once you start looking in the mirror and once you start kind of embarking on this path of self-discovery and personal and professional development, it doesn't stop. You can try to close the door, but you can't unknow what you know. And so it is at some point a conscious decision to take that radical responsibility, which also leads you eventually at some point to disentangling from the matrix. So it's a lot. It's a big choice for people to make. And I think the other thing is too, people don't know what to do with it. Right? At some point, what do you do? Okay, I look in the mirror, I see my problems. I find so many clients who know what's not working. They can identify their patterns in work, their procrastination, their relationship conflicts, all of that. They can see it, but they don't know how to change it, right? So sometimes having the right support or tools or, kind of structures to be able to work with to actually create change are needed to be there, or people get really discouraged and they start looping in this, it's the Taylor Swift hit song, right? It's me, hi, problem, it's me. Like, what do I do about it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's actually a meme I've seen quite a bit recently, which talks about, it says that there's nothing more dangerous than a man, but obviously you can apply this to both sexes, who's cured and got over their demons on their own. And I think that's so true. When you've been through stuff and you take that personal responsibility, you accept that you're not perfect, because nobody is. Everyone has issues from some aspect in their life, because most people have been through some form of conflict. Taking responsibility and dealing with them makes you 10 times stronger coming out the other side. But I think people get that, they don't understand that, do they? They think that if I show weakness, that's showing weakness. But vulnerability isn't weakness, is it? It's accepting that you're ready to grow.
Yeah, vulnerability is a marker of courage. It is the courage, like we're talking about, to look in the mirror. It's the courage to own the good parts of yourself and the bad parts of yourself. It's the courage to know that you can handle whatever happens on the other side of that. If people react negatively and think less of you, if people react positively and put you on a pedestal, that's not a good place to be either. It's the courage to be willing to handle whatever people throw back your way. Like, to me, that's what leadership is. It's the willingness to experience the impact of yourself in the world. And so being vulnerable is about bringing your true, authentic self forward and being willing to experience that. So absolutely, our strength comes from going into difficult and dark places, and the muscle that we build coming out of that, and the wisdom that we hold standing on the other side.
Yeah, and out of darkness usually comes the light. I saw something interesting the other day that said you've survived 100% of the bad days you've had in your life, which is very true. It's very true. Now, I want to get into something with you because I think I want to get your take on this. I've been reading something recently and I saw a video on this, and it was called The Myth of Motivation. And what it was talking about was the fact that motivation versus discipline. And people think that if you go to the gym every morning, the guys that get up and do that, people that eat well every day, people that don't drink, they're motivated to do that every day. And it made the point that they're not. No one's motivated to do that, however much you might enjoy it. You're not motivated to get up at 5 a.m. 7 days a week. But if you have discipline and you decide to go anyway, you do things that you don't want to do anyway to get to the end you want to get to, whatever that may be, you're going to get there a hell of a lot quicker, and you're more likely to get there than if you just do it when you feel like it. And I wanted to get your take on that, because you must speak to so many people that have that same battle.
Yeah, so that's probably a more complex question to ask me than you realize, Jaymie, because the way that I work with people and the way that I see it is that everybody needs customized direction based on the phase that they're at in life, what their growth edge is, right? So I have a number of clients who come in and they've been in that work hard, discipline, structure, and that stops working, right? They reach a ceiling in terms of their growth, their income, their success, whatever, happiness, fulfillment. And that's why. It's because that strategy is no longer working for them. They need to move into a more creative place. They need to expand spiritually. And so for them, I require them to stop all the discipline and tune into more of their intuitive guidance and flow that unfolds from within. And from that place, what I actually find is that there's all kinds of belief systems, fears, old traumas, voices in their heads that are critical that now become very apparent because they can't rely on being in action. They're having to face all the stuff that needs to be unearthed in order to move them to the next level. Other people, though, are in the space that, and I think this is probably most people, this is probably why you're speaking to this, they're in the space of needing the structure, needing the discipline. I think this has been a large attack on our culture, on the world as part of this global control agenda, is the removal of structure and discipline. And the only thing that we find structure and discipline in is when we submit to our corporate jobs or schooling, education, whatever the linear path that they've molded us to be, little robots marching along in. But we need to reorient to different structures. This is why I think Jordan Peterson's work is genius. He's giving people this moral structure, values, discipline, like what it is to do something that's uncomfortable and difficult, and know that the experiences and results of your life are coming from you and the choices that you make, even in small moments, the habits that you have. So that's huge. But in the end, on the other side, there is something that I found that you reach at a certain point of, it really is your spiritual development, which comes after kind of personal and professional development. You move into a path of, it's primarily spiritual work from there on. But in that space, I feel like that's where I reside. I do have motivation. Like I was telling you as we were starting this conversation, right now I'm starting work at 4:30 a.m. I'm not willing myself or disciplining myself into that. It's happening because I'm on fire. I am on fire for my mission. I'm on fire for my work. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And that passion is so great and so integrated into every cell of my body that there aren't off days. If I have an off day, it's because what's going to be more efficient and effective for me is my body to shut down and I come back tomorrow with my creativity and my energy back online in a way that I can function more productively. So there is a point that you reach where it's not motivation though. It's like a passion and a fire that just can't be touched by anything in this world.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I've got the same thing every morning. I get up at 4:30 as well. And that passion to get in and get stuff done. But I kind of find that interesting what you're saying about kind of order and there being some structure, because obviously one of the mottos of the 33rd degree of Masons is order ab chaos, which is order out of chaos, which is create chaos and then have a new order out of it. As we both know, and we've spoken before, there's clearly an attempt to take the world in a new direction where there's a new order that's different to the current one. We've seen it with attacks on masculinity and various other things that were pretty stable structures and part of our overall society, which I don't see as taking it in a new order that's a good thing for us.
Right.
But one of the things I find really interesting is in the alternative or independent media, independent world, money is always looked at as the root of all evil. Now, I've never looked at it that way. I've always thought it's the way it's used by society is the root of all evil. Things like fractional reserve lending and all that, where it's built into the system that people lose their lives. But reading through your site before we jumped on, I find it really interesting, the bit where you talk about if we bring more wealth into kind of our realm, if you like, that is using it to do good, using it to plant seeds, using it to learn, to educate people, to do all those things, it's much better than the likes of Bill Gates and Elon Musk having it, isn't it? So I don't necessarily see the root of all evil that some do. I find it interesting. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like what I was talking about with people who they've been disciplined, they've been willing themselves and taking action and all of that, but they need almost this deprogramming and deconditioning to move into the other side. People, I find, who are in that category of seeing money as the root of all evil, like they've been traumatized by this world and by the systems and by greed and power over others that these corporations and, greater than thou people have. And so there is a phase where there's some deprogramming and healing that happens when money is no longer on a pedestal anymore and you don't feel controlled by it anymore. But then on the other side, you've got to come back to, okay, planet Earth, right? And to actually make changes in our 3D world, you've got to have money. That's the system that this operates on. That's going to be in the new Earth. That's not going away. Like any other belief system is just spiritual bypassing. But part of what we came here to do is to create success in our missions that are like tangible things, jobs, businesses, creating things. So it's really important that we tune into what our actual desire for money is. you may not have a desire for a huge amount of money, right? So maybe you're not here to build an empire. Or maybe the lifestyle that you desire and the money you want to be responsible for is massive. You've got to claim that and go all in that, because when the money comes to us and then it filters through our value systems and we have those foundations in place, self and God and marriage and family, and like the whole world around us changes. Where do we buy from? What companies do we invest in? Which projects do we support? Those things grow when we wield the resources. So a huge part of my work and what I'm passionate about is making money a top priority, especially for spiritual people who are here to do big things.
Yeah, I've always felt that money can be looked at in two ways. It can either enrich your life, if you've got something that's already worth having, or it can define it. And if it defines it, then that's probably not the great way to go. But if you've already got those values you spoke about, you've got that family, you've got that solid base, you've got that health, you've got all of that, and then money comes, it does make your life easier. That's no doubt. It does give you, I feel that money equals choice in the world that we live in, doesn't it? The more money you've got, the more choices you can make. As you just said, where you buy your foods, where you take your family on holiday, where you live, all those sort of things that dictate a lot of your life. Money's just kind of fun coupons in a sense, isn't it, to redeem and have a better life in that respect.
On like a level, absolutely.
Well, the last thing I wanted to cover was to do with ethics and morals in business, which, you know, I think there's this myth that you have to be this tycoon, you have to be a proper dragon and a snake, you have to stitch people up and trample on everybody to get somewhere in business and to reach that point of earning good money and success and so on. You have to backstab and do all those things that we really don't want. And granted, some of the people that have made it there, your likes of Gates and Musk and Bezos and all that, there's plenty of scandals involving them. But I don't buy into that. I think if you have the right ethics and the right morals and you go about things in the right way and you have some talent and something to offer, then you'll get somewhere, providing you have the right attitude.
Yep. And I think what we're going to see over time is that those empires that are built on foundations of corruption and unethical behavior, they're going to crumble. Or they're going to be completely consumed by the matrix and that really dark, chaotic world that they're building over there, where they flip the switch on the propaganda machine and here's a new virus. Like, you're going to be either there or you're going to do what always is tried and true, even in the business world as we know it, which is having integrity, following through on your word, acting in alignment with who you are and what you believe, making decisions based on what's in the greatest good of yourself and everyone else. Like, it's becoming a problem even in recruitment, right? Companies aren't able to find and retain people unless they have offerings that are in alignment with other people's values, respecting and honoring the human being. Like, this is the direction that we're all going. So it's definitely important, and you're going to be rewarded in the long run if you stay true to what you believe in and who you really are. It's like you said, if you've got a talent, if you've got value to offer in the world, and really what that is and what that comes from is what I call your viewpoint. It's your soul blueprint. When you embody that and you express that and you're doing what you came here to do, you're going to be successful. You don't have to play in the old paradigms of business, which are dying anyway.
Yep, I completely agree. Well, hopefully the future looks exciting then. Thank you very much for joining us in this first podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jaymie, for bringing me on here. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. That was Melissa Buffington there, holistic health coach. I hope you found that conversation interesting and got some tangible advice and interesting things to take away from that. And I'll be back again next week with another podcast where I'll be chatting to somebody else of interest. In the meantime, check out the Ickonic Daily Download, 10 a.m. every morning on Spotify, Buzzsprout and YouTube. I'll see you soon.